Good afternoon. Can you hear me in the back? Excellent. Okay, I'm going to give you a high-level summary of the recommendations from the science plan. Let's see. The science panel, I should say. There's 9 members of the panel. These are the members. Some of them are here, 6 of them are here. These are a mix of people with environmental research and social science research expertise. We have also Rich Betuk from the EPA, who we heard about with the principles of adaptive management earlier. And he's worked on Chesapeake Bay for several decades, and Fred Sklar from the South Florida Water Management District, who we'll hear from shortly, who's worked in South Florida for many decades, or 3 decades at least. And all of us have some connection to this. Some of us do research in the region of interest, the Western Lake Erie Basin. Some, like me, do not, but have pertinent experience in other ways. And none of us is paid. It's all volunteer, of course, except we get to come to this meeting and drink this coffee and eat this food. Okay. So the charge from the DAP team is to provide input and advice on their revision of the report. And to start with, I'll note that our focus is on non-point sources of phosphorus to the Western Lake Erie Basin, which reach the lake, of course, mainly via streams. And so we're not thinking about point sources or direct discharges. And we're asked to advise on developing realistic, tangible, and science-based goals and objectives that would support the adaptive management process, to address questions related to the projects that the state is conducting to meet the goals of the DAP, and we've heard about a number of those projects today, and to provide input on the information required to implement an effective adaptive management process. So a little more on adaptive management. Okay, a low battery maybe. Oh, okay. Thank you, Allison. This diagram shows the adaptive management process as envisioned in the DAP, and you'll notice it's a cycle. It starts at the top with goals, and then you plan how you're going to achieve these goals and objectives, implement them, monitor, and all along the way you're collecting information on the outcomes and getting external scientific and community input. And then you get around to the next year and you reconsider whether that worked or you should change course. That's the essence of adaptive management. So the management measures must be seen as an experiment, and then we'll see what works and what doesn't and proceed accordingly. This little call out there that just appeared is where we are approximately right now with the adaptive management process. Okay, so I'm going to go through these recommendations, but a lot of this stuff you already know and or have heard about today. But we think that the state should create an independent scientific advisory panel, not us, but a new one, to guide adaptive management. And we feel that Allison? We want to point to a report from the Great Lakes Science Advisory Board that was recently submitted to the International Joint Commission. Still not there. It's okay? Okay, there we go. It has a lot of really good information for how to conduct this adaptive management, especially across jurisdictions, and how to improve communication to link domestic and binational adaptive management processes. It doesn't really make sense for each jurisdiction, each state, or the province of Ontario to do this by themselves. And it calls for, happened again. We're going to make you stay up here. Just teasing. It calls for institutionalizing the Lake Erie Nutrient Adaptive Management Framework to provide dedicated funding and staffing, because this has been a limitation in the past. We talk and talk and talk about adaptive management, but we don't have the staff to make it happen across jurisdictions, okay? Okay, next recommendation, outreach and program implementation. The state agencies can build on current efforts to support local outreach and engagement. They can provide resources and training. They can facilitate communication among diverse interests. They can set clear goals and objectives. And importantly, they can periodically reassess the progress of the goals and objectives and revise as needed. In other words, conduct the adaptive management. The next one is acceleration of key conservation practices, and we feel like there's a lot of new social and behavioral research to understand the barriers to adoption of agricultural practices that we should look at, the state should look at. And also, we may need to conduct some new research in our particular cultural setting. You know, some things could be different, but certainly what's been learned in Ohio and Indiana and places like that is very relevant. We need to better document adoption of practices, we've heard some of that today, and support locally led engagement of producers, landowners, and other entities. Water quality monitoring, we heard from Mike Alexander all the new things that have been implemented in the last couple of years, which is very exciting. We need to ensure that that existing network is maintained over the long term, and maybe even invest in further expansions of water quality monitoring stations. And we list the nutrient forms that we think should be measured. You know, monitoring programs are always really hard to maintain in the long term. They're always targeted for cutting, and some of the expansion of programs supported by grant funding are going to need to be diligently defended into the future. And because it's going to take years for the scientific payoff from these new, you know, stations and new variables being measured, but we got to have those years to figure out what's working and what isn't to underpin the whole adaptive management process. We also heard a lot about the very rich body of spatial data, and you've seen a little bit of that today, and that is going to be a challenge to optimize the use of it, but it's an incredible resource that can help guide adaptive management and underpin modeling, and the spatially explicit modeling that is getting quite sophisticated. Models like SWOT are really going to be invaluable for setting priorities. You know, where should you focus your efforts within the watersheds, and down to the individual field level, actually. Scientific uncertainties, we talked a lot about, and here's Esangane's diagram, which surely is going to get into a textbook someday. I'm not so sure about the roller coaster one, but but we talked about all kinds of scientific uncertainties. I just put 5 here. We need to have research on the effects of conservation tillage. There's some data suggesting that under certain conditions, conservation tillage will actually increase the likelihood that phosphorus will be leached by concentrating on the soil surface, and so we need to know where that might occur. Obviously, to the extent that it reduces soil erosion and transport of particulate phosphorus, it reduces phosphorus, so it's going to depend on the particular setting, and we need to understand that better. Another thing that we've heard about a number of times today is the importance of tile drainage versus overland flow. Tile drains can transport a lot of dissolved and particulate phosphorus, and there's a lot of tile drainage in our watersheds, but no one could present us with data, maybe it exists, but we haven't seen it, on the relative importance of tile drainage to phosphorus movement from land to water in our particular watersheds of interest, the Maumee and the River Raisin. Legacy phosphorus is another one. You've probably heard a lot about this. Legacy phosphorus is the phosphorus that accumulates in soils and sediments all the way from upland crop fields through headwater streams and down the waterways to the lake. And we think the system is very likely saturated with phosphorus. And so as we implement measures to mitigate phosphorus movement, the legacy phosphorus might keep bleeding out phosphorus well into the future. And we need to understand that, because it could be that things are working, but we can't see it because we've still got this legacy phosphorus coming out. Another huge unknown is climate change. You know, climate change will change the amount and distribution of precipitation. We can expect more rain than snow in the winter. We can expect heavier downpours in the summer. We're already seeing that across the Midwest. At the same time, rising temperatures would increase evaporative demand of the atmosphere and could reduce stream flows during the warm season of the year. All this affects phosphorus transport, and so it's really important to try to understand that better. And finally, nitrogen. You know, nitrogen versus phosphorus. We're focused on phosphorus control for good reasons. Phosphorus is the primary limiting nutrient in lake phytoplankton, freshwater phytoplankton, but there's a lot of evidence that nitrogen is important to consider. And if we don't consider nitrogen, we could alter the kinds of harmful algal blooms and their toxicity in ways that we don't fully understand yet. So we need more research on that. Okay, the next one involves collaborative partnerships. We need better access of data from the federal agencies to inform the adaptive management process. And it sounds like that is starting to happen, so I think that's good. We can learn from other programs. The Chesapeake Bay Program Partnership is a good one. We'll hear from Dr. Adam Reimer shortly about a Wisconsin case study as well. So we should look to other places and see what they're doing. We can enhance collaboration with Ohio and their H2 Ohio program under the Western Lake Erie Basin Collaborative Agreement. And in all this, the state should serve as an agenda setting and capacity supporting role while local agencies and conservation partners work with on the ground to engage stakeholders. Okay, so finally to conclude, the problem of Lake Erie eutrophication is daunting, no doubt, but we know the way forward, and in our estimation at least, Michigan's quality of life agencies have done a lot in the last 3 years or 4 years, and they're definitely on the right path. I think that, or we think, I should say, oh, I'm hitting the wrong button. We think that adaptive management will be crucial in the years ahead. Of course, the actions have to be informed by data and models. That's weird. I'll get it right by the last slide. But we got to be prepared to change course in light of new information. And collaboration among everyone here and with the rest of the Western Lake Erie Basin partners is imperative. So that includes, well, it doesn't need to come up. It includes all of you, farmers, citizens, agencies, and nonprofits. So thank you.